All right, everybody. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn. I'm going to give it just a minute here for people to get settled and get into the meeting, and then we'll get started. All right, everybody. Give it one more minute here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, we'll go ahead and kick this off. Thanks everybody for joining the Lunch and Learn today. My name is Tim Stahl. I'm the Senior Director of Architecture here at Decisions within our professional services organization. And I'll be your humble moderator and speaker today. Hopefully dealing out correct answers and no incorrect ones today would be great. We'll go ahead and pop through our little slides, our housekeeping here. The first thing to note, just in case you missed it, Decisions end of life support. So we are up to version 8. That is our latest, greatest. We do, if you notice, version 6 and earlier, we've ended support for those at this point. So we're really trying to make sure we get everybody upgraded to 7 and 8. So if you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to support, and we'll be happy to get that going for you. The next thing, though, is to don't miss out. We have our next product roadmap session coming up on November 2nd. So every other Thursday, the product team gets in front of customers and shares the future of the platform. Basically, they'll go over what we're looking to improve over the last 6 months and features that are in store for the upcoming 18. Product team loves the feedback, so please, if you are interested in that, please feel free to join. It's every other Thursday from 11 a.m. to noon Eastern. And you can find that information on our site at decisions.com/events. I think that's the only slides I got today. Cool. All right. Let me get that randomly out of full screen mode. And we'll go ahead and kick it off. We had a couple questions that were pre-submitted. So I'm going to start with one of those. And then I saw a question coming across in the chat. So we'll get to that one second. As a little housekeeping, of course, if you have any questions as they come up, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A or the chat, and we will try our best to answer those for you. But I'm going to start with the one question that we had come in here. Let me get it up on the screen here so I can read it. Was we're trying to, sorry, my little Zoom windows here are too big. Looking to find an example of how to define and use a data structure that'll persist from flow to flow that has a list of application codes and names. So something like a name and a value pair. Now the application code will be a short name, say 2 characters to identify the app. And the application name is the full name of the application. So for example, maybe you have a code of SG and that maps to an application name called Sage, or maybe DC and that maps to an application name of Decision. They want them to be presented, for example, in a drop-down on the form. And once the user selects the name, then that application code is passed back as a result. So I actually went down a rabbit hole of a really overly complicated way to do it, and I canned that and started over and have a very simple way to do it that I'll walk you through right now. What I've done is I actually started, and it's this project right here. I started with a database structure. And what a database structure is, if you take a look in your create data types and integration, is basically when you create these types in Decision, this is creating a database table on the back end that we can store data in and retrieve it later. A lot of people use it for things like reporting, or really you can use it for just about anything. But this is a great way if you have data that needs to persist that you want to be able to edit from time to time. This is a great way to store that. And what we could do is simply create one, maybe we call it app code, and we give it the name of the column would be app code, and the second one would be maybe the name. So if we take a look at the one that I've already created here, you'll see I've done that. So I've got a database structure called app codes. I've created one column for name and one column for code. I did not change any of the options over here at all on any of this. So this is just default out of the box. And I went ahead and hit save, and that created that structure. Now, the second thing I need to do is be able to get the data in. And a really simple way to do this is by using the built-in form generator on the data structure to create you a quick input form. So I went ahead and did that by right-clicking my data structure and going to generate form. It's going to give you some information here about how you want it to look, the output names and all that fun stuff. But once you hit generate form, it's going to create just a basic form for you. So for example, if we take a look, it generated just a real simple form, has the name, the code, an OK, and a cancel. And this gives me the ability to now use this form within a flow, and I can start entering the codes in. Now, if this was a long list of codes, we'd probably change this, maybe use a advanced data grid here that has inline edit, so I could go ahead and add rows to it and edit and modify all of them. But for brevity today, I just went ahead and used the default built-in form. Then what we do, create a flow. I created one called add codes. Wow, that's ugly. So I created one here called add codes. And what it does is it takes basically this form that we created, or the system created automatically for me, and whatever comes out of it goes into a create app codes step. And I just pass in the code, the name from the form, and I'm done. If we were to take a look at that, you'll see it displays the form. And I can put the name of the application in there. I've got Excel open below, so we'll try Excel and EX for the code. I'll hit OK, and now we've created another row in that table for these app codes. Now, if we wanted to display these, what we could do is say, okay, well, we need to create a new flow for that form that you were talking about earlier. And in that flow, what I'm going to do is, before I show the form, I'm going to do a fetch entities of that app codes type that we created. That'll query the database and pull all those codes out and give us a result here, a list of app codes that'll have that code and name as part of it, which we can then use in our form. So if we take a look at our form, very basic. I didn't do a lot of styling here, but I just put a drop-down list on there. And I said the list items is of type app code, right? So we're matching everything together there. The display field is the name. So I could either display the name or the code or the ID, which is completely useless to anybody. But I went ahead and displayed the name. And then I gave it an import source of data name and gave it that data name there. So that way I have a way to pass it into the form. And then the selected data name, when you select an item and hit OK, it's going to pass out something called app code, which will be this whole type, whatever one you selected here. Now, what this looks like in practice is if we hit debug, we'll see that in the back here, we went ahead and ran that fetch entities. If we take a look at that, we'll see we have this list of name to code. We also get an ID, right? Because we need to know for uniqueness in the database. We need to know which one's which. But we went ahead and got that. We pass that into the form, right? So our input list is a list of these three things, ID, name, and code, over and over and over for all of them. And if we take a look at our drop-down list, I now have that list of names. If I select Sage, for example, and hit OK, I can now see that in my output data, what I passed out was Sage and that code. So now I'd have the ability to use that within active form flows. I'd have it to use within the rest of the flow. But that way, that list of codes can persist throughout multiple projects, and you can reuse it over and over again. Typically, we see that within the US with states, right? The states have a 2-digit code and then the name of the state. For example, mine, Georgia, has a postal abbreviation of GA. So we typically see lists of things like that being used for something like this, but it could be anything. But that's a real simple way to manage that, to handle that, and to use that throughout the system. So if I take a look, let's save that. If I take a look at the next question that came in here, we have one that says, I have one table related to another table. So table 2 may have 0 to many records related to a value in table 1. Okay, we're on the same path so far here. And you want to report several details from table 1 along with several summary results from table 2, such as count of records based on a condition. Can you do this directly in a report? So let's see here. The relationship, of course, we can do, but if you're looking to have, say, a line or a row from table 1, and then you're looking to see how many counts of one record are in 2 and in the next column, based on creation. Let's see here. I don't want to give any of the system actions to users and left click, only those that I define. What's the best and most efficient way in terms of system usage to do this on a case on the other side? Oh, I'm sorry. Those are 2 different questions there. Okay. So your first one, if I'm understanding this correctly, and feel free to jump in and chat if I'm not, or actually I see you're unmuted there. Yeah, let's talk through this. So can you explain a little bit more on that?
So basically it's if I wanted to pull several elements from table 1, and then I just want to do multiple summaries of things from information that's in table 2, because it could have more than one record. So I know I can do like one value in a matrix, but I need to have 2 values or more that I'm trying to say count, or something like that.
So kind of like if we took a look here, I'll just create a basic report here. So if we had, let me just add a data source here so we can actually see something on the screen.
So if you had like a count, like if you had, let's say an example would be like group, right? And then if it was associated to account, to the account data source, then if you had group, and then you say you counted the number of members in the group, and then say the last time somebody was added, or the like that's the example that I would say.
Interesting. Let's see. So off the top of my head, thinking about how I would do this, there's, you have these, have you used the calculated columns before?
I was just starting to look at that, but I wasn't sure how to do, how to get a summary of, like, if you put in group here, in your data, so I don't know if in here, if your data sources, if your accountant if they're related.
I think it goes the other direction where my groups have the account IDs associated with it.
Yeah, so if you added data source of group.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then is there a relation to add?
Why? Hang on.
Like I had to add in. Okay, so you have first name. Okay, so you have an account group data source. Okay, so can you do, like, say for group, can you do in here a count of, so instead of, can you just do a count of email addresses in here?
Oh,
as an example.
Yep. So actually you could do this a couple ways. So like if we wanted to say for administrators how many email addresses are in it as an example there, I just hit the group there on it. So it starts grouping by the group ID in this case. I have my email address here, so these are my details. You can actually come over to, is it results? Yeah, results and subtotal. And we could say I want the subtotal of the amount of email addresses as a count. Hit OK. And it should, hang on, refresh preview. There we go.
So I wouldn't, and then I don't want to show like all of the detail. I would only want the results.
Hang on 1 second. I swear there's something in here. Oh. What if I do this? Huh. What doesn't help? Maybe this. That doesn't help either. Okay. I was curious to see what that would actually do there. So what you're looking for is I want to see administrators group, and then this column right here I want count of, basically.
Yeah,
So
because I
it
would
would
have
be-
multiples of these, right? Or
Yeah,
different, I would have different things.
yeah. So I think what we're looking at there would be more of if we say yes, we say pull all the rows out in account group data source. So we have them all there. Oh gosh, that's not going. No, it's going to want to show it no matter what. I think even if I do these, it's going to do the same thing. Yeah, matrix, you're right. It's going to. Hang on here.
I can do it in matrix, but I can only do one column and meaning of a calculated data from what I can see. So is there a way to do more than one
I was,
calculated column?
I'm just pretty sure there was. Let's see here. I don't want it to. Hmm. No, that's not it either. It's weird because the only thing I'm coming back to is it's almost like you've got to work within here and use and I don't like using these because they're not very efficient. The flow inline fields to do some of your calculations because you can do pretty much anything in there. It'll pass in whatever this says, and you can do whatever you want and pass out a value on the other side. So that kind of gets you there, and that allows you to do multiple. You can do multiple columns for it, but for each row, it runs those flows over and over and over again, so it can be really slow. This one, I may have to go and think on this one and come back to you if that's okay.
Okay.
Let me if you would like, throw your if you go into the chat and change it where you're just sending it to me, throw me your email address and I'll take a look at that. I'll ask internally because I feel like there is a way to do this, but it's just not coming to me.
Okay.
Let's see, and then we'll move on to the second one while I'm kind of thinking. Yeah, so I saw that you can use a report source flow. That's another one that I also try not to use. So if you see VT in the chat there, just put that. They're also not very efficient. So I'm trying to think of ways to do them within the actual report designer. But you are absolutely right. You can do anything within the report source flow. It kind of basically you create a flow that gives you the output the way you want it, and then the report designer just shows it, basically, is what happens. But depending on the amount of calculations you have, the amount of users using it, things like that, it can really impact performance. So we really try. I want to try and see if I can come up with something else. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, that the SQL query is my backup plan, but
yeah, that you're on it. I'm trying to think within the bounds of the report designer, what can I do that's efficient? But you're absolutely right. That's another way you could do it too. But yeah, let me take it offline and I'll try and see what I can come up with on the report designer itself. And worst case, you do have the backup, but I'll see if I can figure something out for you. So let me look at the other one you had. I don't want to give any of the system actions to users on right click, only those ones that I define. Oh yeah, okay. That one I have an answer for. Let me, don't I have a case entity? Let me create a case entity real quick here. Okay, perfect names, right? ASDF. This is actually action visibility rules is what you use for these. So by default, when you have a case, you know, when you right click, it's going to give you everything. But what you can do is you can set action visibility rules to limit what actions people can see on the case. So let me, before we do that, let's go ahead and create a couple cases real quick. Did I put it in the right folder? I did. Good. Case data. So that way I can show you what it looks like here. Let me create case entity. I already have one called test case. Nice. All right. Put it in that folder that I. That's not a. Oh, there. There we go. I'm the wrong thing. Case data. Just making some things up here just to get us some data in there. Just give me the flow tracking ID. That's fine. Description, please. And this is just ignore that. All right. And let's create a case. Oh, what do you? Hang on. Okay. All right, 1 second here. Must have these not set to must have these set to not allow null values. Right, there we go. Okay. So now we got a couple cases. We look in here. We've got some randomness in here. But if we were to right click on these, we're gonna get all this random stuff here. So now if we wanted to take and say, let's put a, I'm not going to create the whole action, but I'm going to give it a, you know, edit case. I'll give it a random user action here. Won't actually do anything. Now, if we take a look at our cases, we should have our edit case action, right? So if we want to get rid of everything else within here, what we can use are action visibility rules, and they'll control what pops up here. And you can control that based on the user, the group, basically anything you have access to within the system, you can use to manage what these people have access to. Now, I will say when you build these, they're backwards of how you think they work, and you can easily accidentally turn off all of the actions and get stuck where you can't get them back. So what I typically recommend is duplicating your tab, leaving one here at the case that you can use to test with, and then the other one, we'll go into our configuration folder here for the case and edit our action visibility rules. So that way we can save it, check it, see if it worked. And if it did, great. And if it didn't, we can go in and undo what we just did to get the actions back. So let's say we want to, in the case of this one, let's say we want to hide change state, just as an example here. So hide change state. What this does is this action visibility rule, standard statement rule, but you return true to filter out the action. So that's the backwards part, right? So for change state to show up, what I want to do is I want to say if the action, and you'll see when we select it here, we actually get the action now. We also get the entity that they right clicked on. So that's where you can start, you can see like maybe certain cases you want this to hide on and certain ones you don't, or, you know, you had your defined ones here. This is where you can set all that logic up. So if I say the action, action name, I think it's action name equals, we'll say change state. Oops, help spell it right. And done. Now, when I hit save here, if we come back over and take a look and I right click, you'll see change state's gone.
So do I have to do every single one of those so that they don't show up?
I think you can do a, instead of doing it that way, you could say string and list. And then you
Okay,
can
so
just say,
that's what I'm
yeah,
doing. So I
yeah.
have to find all of the different possibilities that can show up and list them out in that.
So for things at the root, you do. But for these, you can actually hide the whole category. So I could say I want to hide add or hide dependencies. But yeah, unfortunately, you do. The only other way you could do it, I think, would be is let's say the action name not in list.
Okay,
And what we would say then is I think I called it edit case.
okay. And then, so when I put on the global debugger, I noticed that this, if I have thousands of cases that are coming up in a dashboard, that this is running that is running for every single one. Is that
Mhm.
going to be a performance problem of loading up dashboards for multiple users, like many users? So
Now,
that's
if you have extremely complex rules in there, it could be, which is why maybe maybe doing it this way, where not action name in list or not category in list, so that way it's a real simple rule. That'll help that. So you can kind of get it all in one. It's that might help. But yeah, you are right. It will run for each case that appears and for each time that someone right clicks on it. So I would probably say also is maybe use pagination to limit the number of cases that are shown on the report that you're using. That can help too.
okay.
But yeah, that is a good point. It does when you have global debugger. Yeah, you can see all that. It does. It will run for all. I mean, the thing to know too is it actually is anytime you're in the folder tree. Anyhow, I don't know if we're surfacing that in the global debugger, but the exact same thing is happening over here on this side as well.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let me go ahead and get rid of this before I forget. All right. So yeah, if I look at the next one that came in here, is there a way to have a pop-up UI experience like a subdialog from a JS control? Not redirecting, but actually opening a new, not redirection or opening a new window, if you want to call it for the from forms. Interesting. Let me do this real quick before I lose that. Okay. So theoretically, you should be able to. The problem is going to be the passing of the data back and forth between the JS control and decisions. I've not seen any clients try and do a subdialog from a JS control, or try and pop up another window on top, like show another div that kind of shows on top of everything. I'm not sure that that's going to play very well with the forms renderer for the portal or studio. Is there a reason it needs to be within a JS control? Is there or is it it's a specific type of integration you're trying to use, so it has to be in the JS control? Oh, and actually here I can let me do this and this. There we go. There you go.
Okay. Yes, so the use case for that is, can you open up some report that has grouping? Yeah, like those gray things. Just close it, show it on the dashboard. Yes, so the use case is to try to land something on the group, like just beside case data structure, like an icon that you can click and say edit, and it will call out to the decisions flow with the form to pop up. And when you edit, you will edit all entities in the group. And I know that you can do it with the group action, but that's not the case because that's going to be on the mobile and right click will not play well there.
I'm fairly certain that that's not, I'm fairly certain it's not going to play well within the confines of the studio or the portal on our renderers. And it's because, you know, if I think about how the items are built or how the items are displayed in the DOM, I'm thinking it's probably going to cause more issues.
Jim, I have created a JavaScript control that can just delete and calls out the API and refreshes, send folder refresh event. That
Okay.
works fine. And it fetches the folder ID and the header name, which is a attribute title. But what if we want to do the same, but like a pop-up UI? I can redirect, so I can call out to the flow and it will redirect to the window, and then I can edit, and then it will do the same and redirect back to the same dashboard. But it's kind of
Clunky.
not desired.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, so you're trying to actually call and have decisions render one of its own forms. Like if I were to, you know, just as an example, you know, render this form from your control without doing a redirect to a blank page with the form rendered on it.
Yeah, or the same way, like if you have like a link inside of the cell, and it will pop up UI.
Yeah. Okay. Even yeah, even that's gonna. I'm thinking the answer is no, but that might be one. You know, I might hate to say this might be a good opportunity to throw a ticket into our support group on that, because that's going to take some digging. I don't think you have the ability to do that. Because now I see what you're saying, but
Yeah, I just wonder how do you handle this pop-up UIs? Is there a script that I can call out from the front end to make this pop-up instead of redirection?
yeah, I'm not thinking so. I don't know that that's exposed as part of the experience here, but let me look at something here. Hang on real quick. All right, 1 second. I'm taking a look at something here. Well, maybe. The reason I say maybe is when I'm taking a look at this, when I right clicked and told it to run form, we called run action, which, you know, called action run action with a body of, you know, here's your headers in there, but with a body of, you know, what you have to have an event ID, you have to know a form. And this doesn't have the form in it. So now I'm not necessarily thinking that that's going to, hang on 1 sec, look at something else here. This is where it'll get the form itself. But even there, we're not passing it in. I mean, I'm going on a limb and saying it's probably not exposed. But yeah, that's probably a good one for a ticket, to just ask if there's a way to invoke one of our forms to run within the current experience. So where you're currently at. Yeah, I don't think that would work. And the reason I keep going back to it is the way the way the APIs work is when you call them, it's calling a REST service, it's sending a payload, we're doing a thing and we're coming back. It's not something where you're actually controlling the platform itself, right? Like calling the flow, having it do some logic, return a result, and using that in JS, that makes sense. I see that and how that works. But in this case, this is actual base code within the Studio or Portal experience that are actually rendering those forms on top and going and kind of doing it like that. So I don't see that you'd be able to access that method, because it's not necessarily over the API boundary. In this case, it's part of the code that's in the browser running the Studio or Portal experience.
So what if on that click I will have like a run flow button on the page hidden, and behind the scenes I will click that and pass in my header from the group and handle that way? Would that work from JS control?
Yeah, I'm still thinking not. And it's only because, again, it's a difference of accessing decisions across the API boundary and then accessing the actual APIs within the code base that's running this experience here. I think that's going to be the limitation there.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry I didn't have a good answer for you, but I just, the way I'm thinking through how the system works in my head, and that's what I keep coming back to, is it's a difference between using the system across the REST API boundary and using the system as you're trying to invoke it using the actual core decisions web framework. But I just don't think we have exposed like that. Okay. So just kind of curious, I'll throw it out there if anybody has any other questions. Those are the ones we had submitted and the ones that came in so far today. If anybody has anything else, be happy to try and run it down or give you all a little bit of time to go have lunch. The lunch part of Lunch and Learn. Okay, cool. Well, I have the email address saved and your question. I'll run that down and look for something from me probably tomorrow at this point, based on what I got going on today. But I will run that down for you and get something back to you. And I appreciate everybody's attendance today. And as always, we're here Monday through Thursday at noon Eastern. Feel free to always join and pre-submit your questions. We like getting ahead of them if we can, of course. But if that's it, I'll give everybody a little bit of time back to go eat, and have a great rest of your day.